Hi everyone, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to Boundaries Without Guilt. If you're joining live, oh, little tech issue, okay. Hi everyone, I am so glad you're here. Welcome to Boundaries Without Guilt. If you're joining live, drop a hi in the chat and let us know where you're joining from. A quick tech note, feel free to use the chat throughout our session. I'll check it during questions and at the end, and I'll be addressing questions toward the end. If you want to make sure I see your comment, drop a Q before your question. So let's talk about why you're really here. You didn't join a random masterclass on this Thursday because you have nothing better to do. You're here because something isn't working for you. Maybe you're exhausted from being available 24/7. Maybe you're resentful about how clients or team members treat your time. Maybe you know you should charge more but feel guilty even thinking about it. Or honestly, maybe you're just tired of saying yes when you really want to say no. I get it, I've been there. I've been working on and improving boundaries my whole life. I've gone from working weekends and nights to being done every night by 6 or earlier, charging premium fees, and being able to take off days to be parent of the day at my toddler's school without checking my phone for multiple hours. So, from personal and professional experience, I can tell you for sure that the difference between women who thrive in both business and life and those who burn out isn't talent or work ethic, it's boundaries. In fact, sometimes our work ethic gets in the way of us setting good, healthy boundaries. So, today I'm going to show you how to set boundaries without the guilt that's been holding you back. And yes, I said without the guilt because that's the game changer. That's what holds most of us back. So I want to be really direct about something, okay? Setting boundaries is challenging for a lot of people, but for women, it's another level of difficult. I've worked with many women who look like they're killing it, but in private, they're constantly anxious about work, can't turn off their phones or notifications, and don't know how to be present with their kids and families, and especially do not know how to take downtime and time for themselves. When I ask them about stronger boundaries or even any boundaries, the same feelings come up. I know I need them, but I just feel so guilty, like I'm letting everyone down. Does that sound familiar? When those types of thoughts come up, here's what's really happening. First, we're fighting centuries of conditioning, not decades, centuries. From a young age, women are taught to be accommodating, that our worth is tied to how helpful we are, that saying no is selfish, and that other people's comfort matters more than our own needs. If you've ever been made to give someone a kiss or a hug as a kid that you didn't want to, that's putting someone else's comfort over your own over your own biology needs, over your own physical space needs. This isn't abstract. It's deeply embedded messaging that starts when we're praised as little girls for being nice and sweet, when we've tried to speak up about someone infringing on our space or body and been told, don't make it a problem. You've been hearing this your whole life. Second, we face very real consequences for setting boundaries that men simply don't have to deal with. Research shows women who set firm boundaries are more likely to be labeled difficult or not a team player, more likely to receive negative feedback about their communication style, and often penalized in subtle ways that impact opportunities and even advancement within a company. This isn't in your head. The hesitation you feel around setting boundaries isn't weakness, it's a rational response to real patterns you've observed and probably experienced, or at least seen other women experience. Third, we're doing mental calculus men don't have to do. Every boundary decision requires us to weigh, will this damage the relationship? Will I be seen as difficult? Will this limit my future opportunities? And is this worth the potential backlash? Do I have the energy to set this boundary and enforce it when pushback happens? It's exhausting and it creates what I call boundary hesitation. That moment of doubt that usually leads to saying yes when you want to say no because you've calculated that the risks of the boundary outweigh the pros that you would get. So listen closely. The guilt you feel isn't a character flaw. There is nothing wrong with you. It's the result of very real social conditioning and professional realities. But here's what I really want you to try to understand. Just because this pattern is real doesn't mean you have to accept it and that it can't change. The most successful women I work with have learned to set boundaries, not despite these challenges, but with a full understanding of them. Knowing that setting new boundaries will come with challenges and pushback. That's what we work on together. If anyone's live, a quick chat check-in. Drop a yes in the chat if you've ever felt guilty about setting a boundary. I know I'm not the only one. So let me tell you what happens now when women leaders master boundary setting. And this isn't theory. This is what I've witnessed with my clients over and over. And while I'm describing it in terms of business, this is true for all areas of life. First, your business fundamentally transforms. With clear boundaries around your business, you can raise your rates and clients will pay, reduce working hours and take home the same income, improve client results because you can focus on quality over quantity. And here's something to understand that's crucial. Setting boundaries, it's not just self-care. It's a business and life strategy. When you're clear about your worth, availability, and terms, 3 things happen. 1, you filter out clients who don't respect your value. You attract people who appreciate your standards of work. And you create space for your highest value work. A second benefit, your leadership presence amplifies. Here's what a lot of women miss. Boundaries don't diminish your influence, they magnify it. Most women have been taught that boundaries are walls that separate you from others or limitations that reduce opportunities, especially or selfish acts that prioritize your needs over others and potential threats to relationships and connection. I see that a lot. People are afraid that a relationship will not survive a boundary. And I tell you this again and again. If a relationship can't survive a boundary, you need to ask yourself some questions about what that relationship really is, and is it actually an authentic and supportive relationship? But this framework of thinking that boundaries are a negative thing on your life creates a guilt cycle, right? You try to set a boundary, you feel guilty, so you remove the boundary and then overcompensate even further. You feel burnt out, you set another desperate boundary that you don't enforce, and repeat. What if there's an entirely different way to view boundaries? What I've discovered through working with hundreds of women can help you transform. Boundaries aren't walls. They're filters that allow the right things in and keep the wrong things out. Boundaries aren't limitations. They're the operating conditions that allow you to deliver your best work and be your best self. Boundaries aren't selfish. They're the foundation of sustainable service to others and more joyful living. Think about a leader you value, someone you respect. Are they available to you 24/7? Think about what you respect about them and write down, if not in the chat, write down some characteristics you value in a leader. It's probably not getting walked on by others. If anything, you've probably seen some great leaders use the method I'm about to share with you in a few minutes. Being a leader or mentor includes modeling healthy work-life balance for others. A third result of better boundaries, your personal well-being transforms, not just your business. This might seem obvious, but it's important to remind yourself of when you stop overextending yourself, you'll have more energy for creative work or hobbies. You'll make better decisions. You'll show up more present for the people who matter, and you'll experience more joy in your work and life. This is all possible when you break the guilt boundary cycle. Putting it another way, I like to describe what's called the success boundary cycle. What do strong boundaries do for you? They can create focus, and focus produces quality work. Quality work builds reputation. Reputation attracts better opportunities, and better opportunities require stronger boundaries. You cannot say yes to everything when you're being welcomed with a lot of great opportunities, and the cycle continues upward. A lot of women are stuck in the opposite cycle. Weak boundaries lead to overcommitment. Overcommitment reduces quality. Reduced quality affects results, and poor results damage confidence. Low confidence makes setting boundaries even harder because you don't feel worth a boundary. Or you feel too desperate to get a client that you can't set a reasonable boundary. So the question isn't whether you can afford to set boundaries, it's whether you can afford not to. All right, another check-in. What's one specific area where you know stronger boundaries will improve your business or leadership? Drop it in the chat or the comments, okay? Now, let's get practical about how to actually do this, okay? The part you've been waiting for. How do you set clear boundaries without the guilt? Here's a 3-part framework that works specifically for women leaders. I call it the ARC method, A-R-C. A, assess your non-negotiables. Most boundary failures happen because we're not clear on what matters most to us. So we start here. Create 3 categories: time, energy, value. For each category, identify your absolute non-negotiables. For time, this might be no client calls after 6 p.m., fully unplugged weekends, a meeting-free Wednesday for deep work. For energy, some examples could be types of clients you won't work with, projects that you know drain you, and situations that consistently deplete you and give you nothing positive. For value, think about minimum rates you'll accept, payment terms you require, and how you expect to be treated while working on the project. A lot of this can be created through certain contracts. Here's a crucial part that's easily missed. You also need to know why each boundary matters to you. I don't take calls after 6 p.m. isn't powerful enough to keep you consistent with it. I don't take calls after 6 p.m. because that time is dedicated to my family, which allows me to be fully present with clients during work hours, is a better way to connect your boundary to a deeper purpose and make you more likely to stick to it when you understand the why of the boundary, okay? This isn't just semantics. When you connect boundaries to your core values, the guilt diminishes dramatically because you feel entitled to it. The R of the ARC method, respond with confidence. Now let's talk about communication, the moment of truth for most boundaries and a really difficult area for women to be assertive in. I've created what I call boundary response scripts, okay? These are flexible frameworks that help you communicate clearly without over-explaining or apologizing. The basic structure has 3 parts: appreciation, clear boundary, and an alternative solution. Excuse me. Sorry about that. One of my boundaries, I forgot to turn my phone on silent. But an interesting thing, I turn it to do not disturb at 8 p.m. So that's a boundary. Okay, back to the ARC method. Appreciation, clear boundary, and alternative solution. Here's how it sounds in practice. Thank you for thinking of me for this project. Appreciation. Currently, my client's schedule is fully booked through the end of the month. Clear boundary. I'd be happy to discuss starting this in April, or I can offer an alternative way of working together in a group format. Alternative solution. Okay? Notice what's not in there. No apologies, no over-explanation, and no wavering. When you're tempted to justify or apologize, remember, your boundaries are not punishments to others. They're the operating conditions that allow you to deliver your best work and live your best life. The C of the ARC method is consistency through systems. And this is something I've found to be so helpful with my clients. It's creating systems that maintain your boundaries for you so you're not constantly having to enforce them. Some examples that I help people set up for themselves: email signatures that state your response times, onboarding documents that outline your process, scheduling systems that only show your available times, and templates for common boundary scenarios and conversations. These could be email templates, conversation templates, anything. One client created what she called a working with me guide, and she shared it with every new client, and it reduced boundary issues and questions by around 80%. This could be in referral form, contract, or email template. And why did it reduce boundary challenges? Because it positioned her boundaries as professional standards, not personal preferences. A lot of us women, we think of our business as something to be negotiated, and we don't see our boundaries as professional, we see it as personal. But you need to know how you can run your business the most effective way without burning out. Because if you burn out, you have no business. And the key to consistency is removing yourself as the boundary forcer whenever possible. Of course, you're going to have certain conversations with people because not everyone will respect it, and people are always going to try to push a boundary. But when it's there in writing, it'll make you value it more too, and you hold to it more too. Your systems do the heavy lifting for you, and you seriously lessen the amount of difficult and annoying conversations and draining conversations you have to have. That's what a lot of my clients do tell me, is that enforcing the boundaries over and over is very draining. So systems can really help with that. Before the next piece, I want to address the question I know many of you have: what about pushback? Here's something I've learned. When you set bounds clearly, consistently, and from a place of service rather than resentment, pushback decreases dramatically. But when it happens, remember, pushback is information, it's not an emergency. Someone else's urgency is not yours. You can acknowledge their feelings without changing your boundary. That doesn't work for me is a complete sentence. Chat check in again. What's one boundary you're committed to implementing this week? Be specific with yourself. Excellent. Okay. So the framework I've shared today is powerful, and you can certainly begin implementing elements of it on your own, but I want to be completely honest with you. Transforming your relationship with boundaries isn't just about knowing what to do, it's about rewiring patterns that have been reinforced for years or even decades. This kind of deep change rarely happens in isolation. The women who experience the most profound boundary breakthroughs are those who have support, accountability, and expert guidance as they navigate their transformation. That's why I'd love to explore working together, and I work both individually and groups. I love groups because women support each other, they lift each other up. You hear you're not alone, and you should know none of these thoughts around boundaries and concerns, you're never the only one thinking them. And when we work together, we address the specific boundary challenges in your unique context. It's not about generic advice. One size doesn't fit all. Sure, we can create frameworks and you could do it, but knowing what your core values are will help even further. And it's about creating strategies tailored to your particular business or leadership role, team dynamics, family dynamics, client and personal relationships, personal values and priorities, and anything else that impacts your ability to set and hold a boundary. We also work through the inevitable resistance that comes up when you start implementing stronger boundaries. And this is where most women get stuck when trying to make changes on their own. Because when you set new boundaries, there will be some pushback, even if you can minimize it with the ARC method. People don't like you to change, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't. What can become possible for you? The women I work with experience transformations that go far beyond just having more time. They develop confidence in their value that translates to higher rates and better clients, more aligned clients, more ideal clients. They create sustainable success without the burnout and resentment, and they build leadership presence that brings about respect. They model healthy boundaries for their teams and families, and they feel so much more seen and heard. They reconnect with the passion that led them to their work in the first place. If what I've shared today resonates with you, I'd love to connect for a conversation about how we can work together and how I can help you in your transformation journey. It's not a high-pressure sales call. It's a genuine exploration to understand your specific boundary challenges, identify what's really keeping you stuck, determine if my approach would even be the right support for your journey, and create a clear path forward for you. I have a limited number of spots available for these conversations over the next 2 weeks, and to schedule yours, I'm going to share a link in the chat. Okay. And this is just an awesome 45-minute strategy consult where we'll actually give you some actionable steps to get going. There you go. And for anyone ready to move forward today, I'll be offering a special opportunity for masterclass attendees who schedule their calls within the next 48 hours. And when we connect, I'll share the details of how we can work together to create sustainable change in your relationship with boundaries and the ripple effects that will have across your business and your life. The transformation I've described today is absolutely possible for you. The question is, are you ready to invest in yourself and create the conditions for your most impactful, aligned life? I hope to connect with many of you in the upcoming days, and the link to schedule will also be sent in a follow-up email and posted on my profile. If there's one thing I hope you take away, it's this. The boundaries you set aren't just about protecting your time and energy. They're about creating an intentional and balanced life. You don't need permission to prioritize what matters most to you, but if you do, here it is. I'm giving you permission. I'm a licensed psychologist, and I give you permission to prioritize yourself. When you do prioritize what matters, most everything changes. Your business, your leadership, your sense of possibility. For everyone who attended, I've created a boundary blueprint PDF that expands on what we covered today, and you'll receive it in your email in the next day or two. Thank you again for your time. I can't wait to see what becomes possible for you as you implement these strategies. Everyone have a great afternoon.